What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. My name's Kyle. A really important video for you guys today. This might be one of my most important running back data studies for you guys to basically just take a look at, and we'll kind of project some of these numbers here. But what I'm looking at, it's called running back touch points. I'm going to open up the screen share here, and I'm going to show you guys what we're looking at. Essentially, in this video, we're going to cover the article that I have posted on the Fantasy Fellowship. It's in the link in the description. I'll probably post it in the comments as well if you want to check it out. But it's an interesting data study here. And if you guys are familiar with Scott Barrett's work from Fantasy Points, he essentially found out that running back carries are not the same equal fantasy points to running back targets. He found that running back carries are roughly 0.62 fantasy points per carry, and targets are worth 1.57 fantasy points in full PPR league. So essentially, a target for a running back is worth almost 2.5 times more than a carry is. And that got me thinking, if I applied those numbers to last year's 2022 data, I'm just curious, how would that look? What would the running back rankings look like? How many points would they have? Stuff like that. So I took the 0.62 and I multiplied everyone's carries last year, and then I did the 1.57 and times everybody's targets, and I found some interesting stuff below. So let's take a peek at that. These are your top 12 running backs last year in the touch point formula. Austin Eckler was running back one. He ended up with 331 total touches, 204 rushing attempts, 127 targets. And again, because targets are so valuable to the running back position, he had the most, like the clear most. Nobody else had over 90 targets in the NFL last year for running back. So we took 127 times the 1.57 points, and he was the clear running back one. He ended up with 323 fantasy points in touch points. And then he did finish. So I guess the way that this is filtered, this touch points, it goes from 325 down to 245. But what I was curious about was how accurate this information would be. So I put the PPR finish number here from last year. So Eckler, he led the league in touch points. He was running back one. Josh Jacobs, number two, finish in PPR, number two in touch points. Saquon Barkley, number four last year, but he's third in touch points. Derrick Henry, RB3 last year, and he was fourth in total touch points. Ramondre Stevenson also up there with touch points. He was RB7, 88 targets. That boosted his number significantly. Now I have two outliers here, RB16 and RB14, Alvin Kamara and Najee Harris. Both had a ton of touches. Both guys, 300 touches for Kamara, 325 for Najee Harris. They were just inefficient with their touches, but hey, they both still finished as, high-end RB2s, which is not bad. But Dalvin Cook, RB9 last year, Joe Mixon, RB10, Leonard Fournette, RB12, Chubb, RB5, and Aaron Jones, RB6. So the main takeaway with this running back touch points with running backs 1 through 12, 10 of these guys finished as top 12 running backs. So I think this is a really important metric. And to me, that's a pretty good percentage of being correct here. So the more touch points you have, the higher PPR finish that you tend to have. And then I did want to call out, I did write up some takeaways on this. And then, like I said, I mentioned 10 of the top 12 running backs in touch points have finished as top 12 running backs. The outliers were Kamara and Najee Harris. There was a total of 849 targets from the top 12 running backs, an average of about 70 targets per running back. So that's a threshold that I'm looking at. Like, is this running back, does he have, upside of 70 targets? Because that means he could be a running back one. And then there was a total of 3,071 rushing attempts from the top 12 running backs, and that averaged out to about 255.92. So very interesting number. If you see a running back that's projected for 255 carries, 70 targets, good chance of him finishing as a running back one. And then what I did is I took those two numbers, 255.92 and 70.75, combine them, and you get 326 total touches per running back. And the thing that I found here, only 5 running backs went over this threshold of 326.67 touches. And guess what? They all finished as top 5 running backs. Last year, that was Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and then down here was Nick Chubb. And again, only 5 dudes went over the threshold of 326 point whatever. Najee Harris was close at 325, but he didn't make the cut. So again, those amount of touches are very, very meaningful. And again, you kind of want to look for, can this running back get 220 or 255 attempts? Can he get 70 targets? Really good chance that he's going to be a top 5 running back that season. Otherwise, you look at this number here of 326. And then I said, if I take the other 7 running backs who were under the 326 threshold, I get an average of 297.85 touches. An RB projected around 300 touches should be considered a threat to finish as a top 12 running back. So that's good to know. Whether you have 240 carries and 60 targets, something like that, that's going to put a guy close into the top 12 of running backs here. So I say target running backs projected for 300 plus touches as your running back 1, and elite running backs with 327 plus touches as top 5 running backs. So that's the notable action that you're looking for in a running back 1. And those are the metrics that we should use for projections this year. Let's move on down to the RB2 list. This is RB 13 through 24. And some interesting things to note here. All these guys in a range of 207 touch points down to 182. And the outliers here, Antonio Gibson, RB 28, and AJ Dillon, RB 26. Otherwise, everybody finished inside the top 24 last year. And I think that was my first takeaway. So 22 of the top 24 running backs in touch points last year finished as top 24. So that is a pretty elite, percentage here of basically touch points. It's a pretty realistic category here that correlates to fantasy production here. So I think there's something to be said of this. And again, the only outliers here were Gibson and Dillon, and they just missed the cut at RB 26 and RB 28. Now, again, I'm going to read these names off. Travis Etienne finished RB 17. He was 13th in touch points. Tony Pollard, RB 8, and he was 14th in touch points. And we expect him to get even more touches this year. So I'm absolutely in love with Tony Pollard this year. James Conner was there, Miles Sanders, Christian McCaffrey, just 49ers stats for McCaffrey, by the way, there. Dameon Pierce, I guess, was an outlier as well. He did miss the cut, RB 27. So I might have to update that numbers, which means 21 out of 24 running backs were in the top 24 of touch points. Kenneth Walker, 18. Devin Singletary, RB 24. Jamal Williams, RB 13. There's David Montgomery, RB 23. And then we already talked about Gibson and Dillon. Interestingly here, not everybody here is over 200 carries. You see Etienne, Sanders, Pierce, Walker, Jamal Williams, David Montgomery. This is the kind of tier where you want a lot of carries, but these guys all have a decent amount of targets, ranging from like 50 to 60. That's kind of the target range that you're looking for here. So let's go ahead and read the takeaways from this list. There was a total of 532 targets for RBs 13 through 24, an average of 44 basically per running back. And then the rushing attempts, 2,437. That was basically 203 rushing attempts per running back. You add that number together, you get 247 total touches. 19 running backs went over that threshold of 247 touches last year, and all of them finished as top 24 running backs except Dameon Pierce, who was RB 27 on 259 touches. So there's something to be said here. This threshold that we established, 247, really good chance that they're going to be a running back 2. And then again, the running back 1 thresholds of 300 and 327 plus or whatever it was. But yeah, it's really significant. These guys all have over 200 touches. The more touches you get, the better the running back's going to be. And then I say target running backs projected for roughly 250 plus total touches as your running back 2. Now, running back 3s, we're not, trying to get running back 3s, but these guys are more bench depth pieces here. So let me just kind of read some of the takeaways from here. 33 of the top 36 running backs in touch points finished as top 36 running backs. The only 3 outliers here are Michael Carter, RB 39, Brian Robinson, RB 43, and Kareem Hunt, RB 38. Total of 483 targets for this group, about 40 targets per running back here. And then the rushing attempts came out to about an average of 158. So now we're looking at that RB3 threshold of 200 touches. So basically, if you see a running back projected for 200 combined carries and targets, good chance that he'll be a top 36 running back by the end of the season. So we have our thresholds now. RB3, you're looking for 200 touches. RB2, you're looking for about 250 total touches. And then your elite RB1s, 300 plus touches. And then even more elite is 327 plus touches. So those are the things we should be looking at. And then without further ado, let's look at my 2023 projected touch point leaders. At the top of the list, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry. I do have Josh Jacobs ranked pretty high here too. Hopefully he gets his butt to training camp. Tony Pollard, another guy that, again, I'm really high on Tony Pollard. I think he could be a dominant player this season. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon cranking in the top 10. There's James Conner. Surprise Rachaad White here. He's going to get a lot of targets, so he did pop in the threshold metrics for targets. Ramondre Stevenson, So basically, what I'm saying is of the 12 running backs here that you're looking at, maybe 9 or 10 of these guys finish as running back ones. I think the ones that are in question are probably Rashad White and James Conner, and who knows about the other guys here. But I would bet that as long as these guys are healthy, you're going to see 9 or 10 of these top 12 running backs finish as top 12 running backs. And then the running back twos here range from Dameon Pierce, Najee Harris, Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Cam Akers, Aaron Jones, Alexander Madison, ETN, David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker, and James Cook. I think these guys here, some of these guys will finish as running back ones, but the likelihood that all these guys finish as running back twos feel pretty good. And again, the number one thing with these guys is health, but we saw last year it was 21 out of the top 24 running backs in touch points finished as top 24 running backs here. So I feel really good about this list. Some of my favorites on this list include James Cook because he's a sneaky PPR player. Montgomery's going to get a ton of touches in that offense. I like Jahmyr Gibbs as well. But basically, this list here, you want to compile. If you can grab 2 or 3 of these guys off this list, I think you're feeling pretty good about your fantasy team. And then we get to the running back 3 sleepers here. Gibson, Javonte, J.K. Dobbins, Kamara, Brian Robinson's pretty high on this list. A.J. Dillon, Breece Hall, Samaje Perine, Pacheco, Swift, Mostert, Dalvin Cook, and then I'll go on a little bit more here. Khalil Herbert, Jalen Warren, Spears, and McKinnon. I think if you can come away with about 4 or 5 of these running backs, 1 through 40 on this list, I think you're in for a pretty good fantasy season here. So just wanted to share with you guys projected touch points. Again, you guys can check out the article in the description or the comments, but let me know what you guys think. Are you guys interested in seeing more data studies like this, more videos that are, 10 to 12 minutes in length? I had fun compiling this. Again, check out the article. We'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.